these two classes, right? So you might have a 39-minute class, you might have a 45-minute class. It's going to be in lots of different permutations in your building, right? I can't say what it is. But basically we're saying we want all of those minutes, and we want you to distribute those classes across ELA Part 1 and ELA Part 2. If you're really going to do this, you're going to partner with us, and we're going to help you think about how to do it based on your context, right? Because it's a game, and it looks different in each context. If you're outside of that kind of, you know, when I worked in international schools, we had 60-minute classes. Then you're teaching one integrated and one standalone a day. You're teaching ELA Part 1 and ELA Part 2. That's the ideal. Kids are getting both classes from the start every day. Right? Okay, that's just a little. Okay, and then if you look at your folder, on the right-hand side is this document. So when you're thinking about, we just want to give you a bird's eye view of purchasing. We're going to go through it in much more detail if this is what you decide to do, right? And we're going to help you think about it, what it means in terms of for your particular context. But if you're going back trying to say to an administrator or district person, this is what I want to do, we want you to know what it's going to cost, right? So first, you're thinking about ELA Part 1, the integrated, right? So per 10 students, it's around $778, right? So those are the texts that you see in the, you can see ELA Part 1, right on the top. So these, all of these here are required, and then there are some recommended texts if you're interested. But I'm not going to go into that because you're going to be in touch with us if this is something you decide to do. You can buy these texts anywhere in America. You can buy them on Amazon, you can use your district vendor, right? These are completely accessible, except Science Life, which, you know, this wonderful woman wrote it herself, so it's a little bit harder to acquire, but you can find it, right? Then we get to ELA Part 2, right? ENL, standalone. Kids are moving through centers. That's much more expensive and much more complicated, right? Because you've got to have an independent reading library at every kid's level. And like we were talking about before with Matthew, they're not reading that one text to get out of 1G. They're reading 30 texts to get out of 1G because they need a lot of practice with text. So this is about exposure. So what you're looking to purchase in that case are libraries at the kids' levels. And you've not been trained in the levels, you don't know anything about that, right? I don't want to get deep. I just want to say you're going to need baskets of books for kids. You might already have baskets of books for kids. So then we're going to help you think about how your levels of baskets map onto what you already have. What you need maps onto what you have. Then you're also going to need group reading text. That's where they sit with the teacher and everybody has the same copy and you're reading a text together, right? If you've got a couple classes in your building and you've consolidated and you're bringing all of your LS Life into one building, which is a good idea, and you've got two strands, like kind of a newcomer, maybe you don't need exactly this because Kelly can be teaching it and then later Jenna can be teaching it, for example. So this is just a bird's eye view. This is not, you know, hard and fast. Depending. A lot of the time with these, the central texts, you know, the ones that you've been looking at, we make kids annotate them. So even though we really want kids to have these books in their hands, right, this is what we recommend. To be honest, online you've got Xeon Scan, and you're going to print it anyway for every kid. We don't use the whole book, but we want them to write on it. And they're not quite ready, these kids, to navigate Post-its and that kind of annotation. They just need to write on the text, right? It's too much stuff. So you don't technically need one text for every kid if you can't afford it. But those are the kinds of things that we're going to guide you through thinking about if you decide to implement the curriculum. And then there are some additional resources that are available. And then this kind of thing that I kind of joked about, but it sort of is no joke. You're going to use a lot of color. I mean, we recommend that it's color because it makes a huge difference with these kids. But you're going to use a lot. You're going to go through a lot of ink, colored ink. If you get a laminator and do that from the get-go, you're going to be in better shape. But it's a cost up front. Okay. So that's sort of just, and then there's a note here about the cost of the ERLA, which is the sort of the Bible that you use to assess kids. It's $100, but if you do our training, we give it to you. That's part of what happens. We train you to use it, and we give it to you. So, okay. And then just as a note of detail, what I'm going to do is hand out, so the second half of the day, I've sort of lost the plot. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to distribute these, and these are, if you're sitting at this table now and you're thinking, I think I have the population, I kind of want to, I might not want to commit right now, but I want to follow through, I want, Annie's, to be aware of who I am, then I want you to fill this out, tell me who you are. One group of teachers like, well, we're here alone, we don't know about our principal, our district. I was like, write me a note, because there are people in this room, Denise, Lourdes, who are going to help get your principals involved if that's what we think needs to happen. So it would be helpful for me to kind of know your level of interest. But if you leave here and you don't fill this out and you decide in 2 weeks, hey, I want to kind of pursue that, I want to get involved, then you're welcome to email me always. Okay. There you go. And then finally, I want to say,
One of the centers, but I don't remember if it was center one.
so we want to organize a follow-up webinar. So you say to me, hey, I'm interested, right? Then what we're going to do is take that group and have them get involved in the webinars. And what do you need to be thinking about around programming, around purchasing, around, like, what are the next steps for you? Because really our next training is probably in the summer, like the training in earnest for Bridges once you sign up. So we don't want there to be a gap between now and the time that the training actually happens for you to start to think strategically about what it takes to set this program up. Right? So we're going to offer this webinar, we're probably going to do something else in June, and then we have now 3 days allocated in early August. But what's important about West New York is if you're interested, we need to build a cohort and we need to sell it to the state, because right now this is for downstate. So if we have a critical mass here, then we'll make sure the training happens up here, right? But if we can't say to the state soon, because we're negotiating our contract, oh, we're not sure what's going on in West New York, then we're going to miss the boat, and I don't want to miss the boat, right? If there are enough people here. So any information that you can give me, like, and keep in touch with me if you're actually interested, that would be helpful. Okay. And these dates might not work. We're kind of floating around. I know you guys are going on break. So I'm going to talk to Denise and Lourdes and Nadia to make sure the dates for the follow-up webinar kind of fit within what makes sense for you guys as a bigger group. So now I think Dan is are you gonna, or just sort of, you can say a couple things, Dan, I'm happy to be the question answerer.